How it all began. No? How did you meet? Yes.
Well, it all
Military,
start-
Military.
It all started when I graduated, when we graduated from PMA
Okay,
in 79.
79.
He was the chief of Constabulary at the time.
Right.
And so, so happened that I was a recipient of the Constabulary Award.
Right.
So he gave me of course, the plaque, and then my first handgun, which was a Walter PPK.
Wow.
That was the reward for being for me getting the Constabulary Award. So I joined. I was commissioned as a constabulary officer in 79.
Okay.
Constabulary.
And you received the award from him, no?
Yeah, of course. When we graduated.
Okay. Okay.
And at that time, I think he also escorted President Marcos during the arrival honors. He may be the acting chief of staff at that time, when we graduated. And so
Okay.
he was there with President Marcos, and I was the one who handled the honors for the President Marcos at that time.
Arrival honors, you mean?
Arrival and departure honors.
Okay.
So basically, that was the first time that we met, and then that was the very first time. And then when we were fielded, when we joined our outfit.
Yes.
When we reported to the Constabulary, it just so happened again that when I went to my first assignment, which was in Silvino Lobos in Northern Samar.
Northern Samar, yes.
He was there visiting as Chief of Constabulary, visiting the troops.
Okay.
And he visited that company, our company, 604th PC company in Silvino Lobos.
Okay.
And so he gave me a ride reporting to my assignment.
Okay.
So I had my 2 duffel bags in the helicopter that he was riding at that time.
Tell me
was
about
thinking-
first impressions. I mean, receiving the award from him, for example.
Well,
what did it feel like?
It was the first time that I came to meet him, and you know very well the aura of a very high-ranking officer in the military organization, and as a young officer, you were looking forward to something. That's what we would be 30 years from now,
Right.
or after some time. And so that's where we learned because he was our chief of constabulary.
Right.
That's where we learned that he was in Vietnam, that he was in Korea, that he was a West Point graduate. I didn't even know that he was a West Point graduate. That time.
What was it like? I mean,
I was excited. I was excited.
In awe, maybe?
I was elated. And I was very happy. I got a James Bond handgun.
Right. You still have the
I have
pistol?
that. I still have that. I have that pistol.
Okay.
So,
And then the next encounter was you were headed towards your first assignment.
yes.
Parang field na.
So, by the way, when we were deployed, the reason why he was inspecting the troops in Samar
Okay.
was because that was an expansion area of the New People's Army at the time.
Samar.
Samar.
Yes. Hotbed.
That was the late
70s.
70s, early 80s,
80s, right.
when they decided that they'd go massive all over the country, and so small group of cadre from Bicol were deployed in Samar.
Crossed over, yeah.
Did some community organizing, and then their first choice of municipality to attack was Silvino Lobos, which was the mayor was a descendant of the Japanese Mayor Yamamoto.
Okay.
And so easily the communist, the CPP, NPA were able to convince, the rule in your community, in your hometown, is the rule of the Japanese regime.
Right.
So the abuses were because of the Japanese. So easily the people would be convinced by the NPA.
Right.
And so that was the first expansion area.
Okay.
And the Constabulary deployed our battalion, which was undergoing retraining.
Okay.
We didn't finish the retraining. We were immediately deployed. He inspected the unit, how we were deployed in northern Samar at that time.
Okay. Your impressions already of the man, I mean, early impressions. The man, soldier, chief of constabulary.
Through time, during those first years, I think he visited us 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
There was a time when he visited us, taking along the Secretary of Defense, giving awards to the troops in the field, which to a certain extent I followed when I made it to a certain rank, that I could give appropriate due recognition to the people out there in the field. In fact, when he brought me to Silvino Lobos, the guys from the helicopter, the crew, brought down all the duffel bags.
Okay.
So I had 3 duffel bags, and then after about a month or so, there was some guy, the aide camp of then General Ramos, Lieutenant Jordan, was looking for the medals that they were giving to the troops, and so I had 1 duffel bag of Gold Cross medals, military merit medals.
Right.
During his visits at the time, he used to bring those bags. The aide camp used to bring those that duffel bag with probably 200, 300 pieces of awards, different medals, to give out to the troops, to instantly dish out to the troops on the field, in the field. That's and that was how we look at the morale of people out there. That's one thing that you believe, that's part of leadership.
He wanted to recognize, those medals were actually recognition.
And instantly, right there, when you are there, give the medals. Okay. In fact, the written awards will just follow at the time.
The document would follow.
The documents would follow. So
but the medal would already.
It was the duty of the aide camp and the staff. You do it right there, and you do this, and then you submit and resubmit. So that's how it was this time.
You were just an ordinary constabulary
Lieutenant.
soldier, officer. You also eventually joined the special Action Force, right?
Yes.
Unity. Okay. But FVR was the founder of that unit.
Yes. The Special Action Force came about in 1983.
Right.
Or the conception of the planning was a bit earlier. This was number one is there was a need for a special unit, crack unit,
Yes.
that could be deployable anywhere, mobile, compact,
Yes.
well equipped and well trained. Well equipped. That's the most important thing. Well equipped. Because we have had so many training, but the important thing was equipment at the time. So that was the concept for the Special Action Force of the Constabulary. There had been some earlier units, predecessors, like the Light Reaction Unit of the PC Metrocom,
Right.
the I think the maritime. There was this Constabulary Maritime COSAC, Constabulary
Oh, it was,
offshore patrol or something like that. There was that. So there were several units, and so these units were dissolved. COSAC was dissolved. So there should have been a replacement, and so that was the Special Action Force, and it was formed by early volunteers. All the members were volunteers. So,
were you first batch?
oh no, I was not. I was almost on the second batch.
All right.
But at that time, we did some training with the Special Action Force at that time.
Brainchild. It was FVR's brainchild. Right?
Yes, and the Constabulary Operations Officer at the time was Colonel Renato Di Villa.
Oh, okay.
So he was the C3, and so they did they formed this. They selected the officers that would handle it.
Right.
Dedicated young officers. Most of them were schooled. They were trained either in the United Kingdom or in the United States.
So special training talaga.
Special training, Fort Bragg and Fort Benning.
Okay.
Most of them.
Okay.
Then there were some guys who came from the Royal Commando course in UK.
Also UK. Yes. Yes. That's very FBR, no? You get the
Yes,
you identify. Tell me about that. Identifying the best training so that.
Well, the Constabulary chief at the time was a believer in good training, training of the people. In fact, our battalion, before we were deployed in Samar, was doing training in Camp Castañeda, in Camp Vicente Lim in Laguna.
Laguna.
They were preparing us for future deployment to address this communist expansion beyond the traditional, the usual stronghold. Their strongholds before. The training of our training at that time as constabulary, we were number one, being trained to address
Insurgency.
To address the community relations, civil relations. That's the main. If I remember right, there was even Tanglaw. Tanglaw training, like that. It's to enlighten us and then to enlighten the project.
Community.
to the community as constabulary officers. Our constabulary people to be able to relate to the community. Second skill that we were emphasizing at the time was efficiency, combat efficiency, combat capability. That means marksmanship, and then delivery of people promptly where we were needed. So it's a combination of being tactically equipped as well as your that you be able to be a people-oriented soldier. Those are the combination of and to a certain extent, SAP, PC-SAF was developed into be a unit to be an outfit like that. But in it first, it was to develop the people first, train the people first, and then later on immerse them. Initially, SAP were deployed in Negros, in Bicol, even in
Samar.
I'm not sure about Samar. I know around Central Luzon.
Central Luzon.
Central Luzon.
Mga hotbed ng ano. No?
The hotbeds
ng insurgency.
At the time.
You worked with the FVR also very closely, eventually later into your career, But looking back at that time, you mentioned two things. One is you have to be connected with the people, diba? And number two, you have to be proficient, with your skills, Was that indicative already noon at that time? May connection ka nang nakikita noon. I mean, did you even think that he would become eventually Commander-in-Chief at that time?
He was the best example of a professional soldier, professional officer. I've seen him before as he went through, of course, to his career. For example, in the selection of Chief of Staff way back in the 1980s, he was one of the most senior officers at that time.
Right.
And eventually, it came down to a selection between him and General Bear, who was the chief of the presidential security at the time, who had the eyes and ears of President Marcos. At that in that competition, he was very, very professional. In fact, when General Bear was designated, there was no instance that I'd see you would hear any grumbling from him. Anything is about doing your job and then support General Bear, support the government, support President Marcos. It was all like that. In fact, I would see him never missing a chance that he would salute General Bear every time. Although I think I remember his commissionship was he was senior to General Bear.
Right.
Every time he'd salute General Bear, comes in.
Because of the office General
position,
Bear occupied. Okay. Very professional.
All the things we were doing in Constabulary, or when he was designated as Vice Chief of Staff
Right.
to General Bear, all those things were being reported to him, to General Bear, and of course to former President Marcos, and informing Secretary Enrile at the time. So that's how. That's the only thing you'd see in him. So even when we jump to the EDSA thing, the EDSA of 1986.
Yeah. Let me get to that. No?
No.
86. Well, you were still part of SAF, PC Special Action Forces at that time, right?
Not yet.
Not yet?
I was not officially with Special Action Force at the time, but I've been associated with. I was part of his staff.
You were already right. Let me get that. When did you get into FVR's staff at PC?
He asked me to go to. He borrowed me from from Metrocom, from General Olivas.
Olivas, yes.
When he he became the acting chief of staff. So he asked me to be in general headquarters.
You were his aide already.
I was at his office in
Ramos.
in Camp Aguinaldo, when he was acting chief of staff.
Okay.
So he was concurrently chief of constabulary, vice chief of staff, acting chief of staff,
And acting chief of staff.
so those were the three hats he was wearing at the time.
At that time. What year was this?
That was
When you were borrowed?
84,
Okay.
84, 83, 84.
But that was already the time of the political tensions, ano? Ninoy was assassinated.
So General Bear was already chief of staff for 3 years, but he was designated, I think, way back in 81. And then we had Ninoy Aquino assassination in 83.
Right.
And then the indictment, and then then he took over as acting chief of staff. So it could be 83 or early 84.
And that was about the time that you were
That I joined him in
Aguinaldo.
Aguinaldo. In Aguinaldo.
Okay. SAF as a unit, di ba? Withdrew its support from. I'm getting into 1986 now, February. General Ramos, Minister Enrile announced their withdrawal of support from the then former President Marcos, and eventually PC Special Action Force withdrew its support. No, was that because of
No.
was that because it was founded by FVR?
No.
Or was it because
it's not,
you saw it?
It's because SAF was under the Constabulary,
All right.
and so when at the time when they decided to withdraw support from President Ramos, the entire President Marcos, the entire Constabulary were behind the chief of Constabulary.
Okay.
And
Ganun ka charismatic yung
that was developed through the years. He handled the Constabulary.
okay.
He had, I think it's about 14 years. 14 years as chief of constabulary. So the bonding, the friendship, the bonding, the brotherhood was there. So it's the entire constabulary withdrawing, supporting the.
So not just SAF
Not
actually.
just the SAF. It's just SAF was just there because of one is security of the
General Ramos.
General Ramos and company, the group. But long before EDSA 86, there had been you would hear all these squabbles already, political
Grumblings.
squabbles, and so we were, to a certain extent, preparing for it. So getting ready for what the country would face, and the line was follow the chain of command.
Right.
Follow the chain of command.
Right.
It's always like that. Follow the chain of command.
But the chain of command was superfluous during those
The chain of
special those what, maybe 4 days, because you had a supposedly an elected
president.
president.
To the very end, the chief of constabulary or the vice chief of staff at the time, General Bear, was restored already at the
Yes.
time. To the very end, he was very supportive of what the then President Marcos was all about as leader of the country. I remember how the corrective measures that were supposed to be undertaken at the time, how he made reports about these things, all these things. Every trip, everything that needed the decision of former President Marcos were written. I'm sure there must be some documents somewhere else. But those that were submitted were all found in the basement of Malacanang at the time after EDSA 86.
Oh my.
But there were reports of how to make things, to correct things.
How to address the problems in the military.
Prevailing. Not only the military, but because he used to visit provinces, the predecessor of the Peace and Order Council, something like that. As I'm not sure what was it called before,
Yes,
but it's something like that. Peace and Order Council. In fact, there was even we started. President Marcos started regionalization.
Yes.
And then he put up this Regional Unified Command
Yes.
under the General Headquarters to integrate all efforts there. He put up, of course, the Constabulary was regionalized, but the Armed Forces was not. The Armed Forces was organized based on military areas after the war.
Right.
After the war. And so to make things happen, there was the Regional Unified Command. So this served as like a focal point for cooperation between the leadership in the civilian sector, the local government, and with the military, combined the army units in the area, the Constabulary, and of course the support units like the Navy and the Air Force.
Right.
So that was the solution at the time, and to make these things work, aside from the RUC being perceived as the handiwork of General Bear and the regional commands under President Ramos, the clash, these things were sorted out by him, and all these things he used to do extensive reports, so that corrective measures could be done at the time.
Tell me about February 25. The day started with one Corazon Aquino, who was sworn in as president. 3 hours later, another former President Marcos was sworn in for another term, noontime. And by the end of the day, diba, Mr. Marcos had flown out, and Cory was preparing to move into Malacanang. Uh, how did the constabulary, what was the sense of the constabulary at that time?
We sent people to.
We weren't quite sure about who was,
Uh,
di ba, the commander-in-chief.
at the time when President Marcos fled, immediately he sent people to go to Malacanang and secure Malacanang. Unfortunately, that, unfortunately, there was
It was looting already.
looting already. We were late
By a few hours. No?
In a sense, we were late. We were not.
Yeah.
But in EDSA too, it's not like that.
Yes, yes, yes.
We were there. We were
Yes.
in control in
I
EDSA
know.
too.
I know.
So that was we were late.
And that's where you discovered the documents, no?
That's where, and not only that, money and so many things.
So many, yeah. Di ba kayo nag-aalinlangan? Was there any flip-flop or were you...
It was a period of uncertainty.
Right.
And so, the immediate action that he called for unity, mending of bridges.
Yes.
That was his first call, and so you remember he coined the new AFP.
Yes.
We had all the stationaries with the new word,
NAFP.
written,
Yes.
new AFP. It's United AFP, integrated. Respect for the decision of the people to put Cory as president. Respect Cory as president. That was the and then stabilize everything,
Right.
keep the peace.
Yes.
That was the, and then reach out to the former people of the
Yes.
the people of the former president. As early as that time, we had to do that, and he was capitalizing on, as you said, his respect for him as our leader for so long a time. Even if you are with President Marcos, I think he was well accepted as the leader, even you are a guy of working for General Bear at the time. You would respect him as a leader of the armed forces. So that was the only capital
Yeah.
integrating force. Let's work together.
Yeah.
We cannot break up the nation. We cannot break up the armed forces.
At about that time, it was also, no. I think he also seized the opportunity, One was right after her proclamation, she appointed General Ramos as chief of staff, And then he
Probably
took,
she had no choice.
yes.
She had no choice at the time. She had to do that.
Yes. Minister Enrile eventually became Secretary of National Defense, but and he capitalized also, on the renewed confidence, wasn't it, of the people on the on the AFP, as a partner, and diba?
That people power thing, is an unusual phenomenon.
Right.
and and the main effect of that one was turn around the perception of the in general of our people that the armed forces of the Philippines was the armed forces of
The people.
Mr. Marcos, that we were the political arm of just the political arm of Mr. Marcos. And so it was changed instantly at that particular time.
Right.
And so because of him, we had the respect of the people.
Yeah.
I, that,
Yeah, I remember the NAAFP patches actually.
the new AAP.
The new AFP, ano? Oh,
So-
it was
so,
only about
It's
a year or two after na bumalik, ano?
we remove it.
Oo.
It's not new anymore.
Yes, it's not new anymore. Oo.
And we went through a massive transformation at the
Yes,
time.
yes, yes.
As I said, there was Tanglao before, and then I don't remember the follow-up one. But
Programs,
it's,
yes.
It's people-oriented, integrator in the community, bring in all the other agencies together. Let's work for the community, and that's to counter the expansion of the NPA.
That's something that he also did later on, ano? When he became SND and
It's a
president,
follow-through. It never changed. The UST thing, unity, solidarity, and teamwork, never changed through the presidency. And then he expanded that to the ASEAN.
ASEAN, correct, correct.
Let's unite with our neighbors. Let's be solid with our. Let's make ASEAN solid.
So consistent siya, no? From the very beginning up to
I
even
think
his
it's
term.
the basic of governance, leader governance, how we govern. That's bring inclusiveness.
Right.
There's no one. It's you're out. No, let's work together.
Let's get to your tour of duty with FVR. He became you eventually became COPE, no? Commanding Officer of the Presidential. But when was that? 92, right
90,
after.
No, 96. That was 96.
96 na. Okay.
96. I was commander of. We joined him in Malacanang. I was commander of the Special Reaction Unit
Okay.
of Malacanang.
Of the Presidential Security Group.
Presidential Security Group, and then I moved to the training school and as chief of operations.
Yes.
In 94. Preparations for APEC of 96.
Right. Manila.
A major event in his presidency,
Right.
bringing the leaders here. After our Pinatubuting devastation.
Yes. Yes.
After the earthquake of those.
Earthquake
And after
1990, Pinatubo 91.
After the coup d'etats of those times.
Right. Right.
And then after the dark days, power blackouts
Yes,
and
yes.
those times. So,
So 92, you were already in the PSG, and then various. Was there even an option to decline, or did he draft you?
I saw in his as I saw in his movement from one position to another in the even in the service when he became chief. Time is so short to prepare yourself to assume a position. And so when you go to that position, you need to be prepared and you have to be equipped. You need to be equipped with all the guys who could be of help to you.
Okay.
So he would normally, like for example, when he became vice chief of staff, he technically practically used the staff of the constabulary to perform the job as vice chief of staff and as acting chief of staff. And so when he became president, basically he brought in the people who will be, in other words, you hit the ground running already. Not that when you hit the ground you study. You don't have the time to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
he brought in people he was familiar with already, who had worked with him.
Let's do it like what he used to do when he's delivered by parachute to somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's not the end of it. You reach the objective, and so the delivery is different. Reaching the objective, finishing the objective, finishing the mission is another thing.
Right.
And that's what he is. So I need the people here. Let's do it. Let's move here, and then let's go.
What was he like up close and personal? Masungit ba? Or
No.
was he a
No,
taskmaster?
No. It's not. He's very considerate. You know.
Yeah.
What we used to see as sometimes he's just doing it as when he's so busy, he would not want to be disturbed.
Okay.
He'd do like bowling out his people close to him, and so nobody else would disturb him. So he'd be concentrated on his work. The best person I remember who was his punching bag was the late Colonel or General Florendo, who died, who was killed by bullet during the Aguinaldo uprising in Cagayan. He would bowl out Colonel Florendo. Well, one is to unload, actually not bowling out, giving all the instructions to Colonel Florendo at the time, so that it could be dished out easily to his staff.
The appropriate, yeah.
And then Colonel Florendo was basically the shock absorber. And the good colonel, he absorbed everything.
Just took it in.
And then when he passed the instructions to the staff in a different manner, smiling and like how he was getting it. So it's his style. It's
so who was the punching bag?
I think
during
Ruben Carandang and Louis Opus were the favorite at the time. When he was president as the ADCOS.
Yes.
The aides. Earlier, when he was chief of constabulary, I remember Sammy Diciano. Absorbing everything for him from him, and that was as chief of constabulary, and then as I think
S&D.
Acting chief of staff.
Yeah.
Acting chief of staff. So, Sammy Diciano was his punching bag at that time.
Okay. But he did He did project the persona na very stern disciplinarian.
Yes.
Pero ganun pa rin siya. Was he also like that up close and personal when you were working with him?
Well,
sa Malacanang na to.
Because the few times we've been together, we'd go play golf in Malacanang Park. And then he invited people
To join him.
who were and gave instructions to them.
Yeah.
Most of the time, the golf game was more of work than golf.
Yeah, I know. In between holes, he would be signing and giving out instructions, right?
So his playmates, the fellow golfers, would not be able to hit the ball well and play well, but because absorbing his instructions,
Right,
so
right.
making use of those times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because time was so short, sometimes we'd go swim for an hour or what. So he'd use the time to swim, and then maybe he thinks of things to do or strategies or whatever in his mind.
Processing.
While swimming. It's
Right.
because he's then he'd go down and take the newspaper and read. So swimming was his I think most relaxing exercise.
Okay.
That's where he meditated and
What was the schedule like? I mean,
in Malacanang.
yeah.
While others
Started early.
while others are still sleeping or
Okay.
relaxing,
Okay.
he used that time to work.
Okay.
He do the paperworks, Malacanang duties, 3 or 4 days a week. The regular weekdays, Monday to probably Tuesday. Then we would have the trips
Right.
on the weekends.
Yes. Yes.
On the weekends.
I remember those.
So the trips would be on the weekends.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
Yes.
or even reaching Monday.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
all the weekend.
So, hectic? Hectic ba talaga? How did you guys manage?
Well, we had to, when I was chief of operations,
Yes.
we had to put up several task groups to be able to do the security in overlapping and leapfrogging, overlapping, leapfrogging way.
Yeah, because he'd moved from one place to another, right?
You need more people. It's not like you just visit Cagayan de Oro. It's not. It's Cagayan de Oro, General Santos, and then sometimes you'd run to Pangasinan. In 1 or 2 days. You cannot move the security like that.
So you had to deploy people in advance.
In fact, we had to do multipliers. Like we had to train people from the provinces, from the other units, which we used during the APEC of 96.
Right.
In our preparations for APEC of 96, we trained them for the presidential engagement in the provinces, and then we consolidated them in 96 to handle the security for
the leaders.
Yeah,
for the summit.
Here in not only in Manila, but
Manila
and
and
Subic,
Right.
two locations.
And in transit as well.
In transit.
No? Right.
That's why.
Right. Did he even have a sense of what personal security was? I mean,
No,
he
doesn't
loved-
care.
Right.
He
loved-
knows better
he
than
loved-
us. His confidence is he knows he doesn't care about security.
But
at all.
he enjoyed messing it up with people, right? Coming up close and personal. But what was it like for you guys? I mean,
I wouldn't say it's a nightmare, but we had to adjust and anticipate things like that. He had his own sense of confidence here.
Yeah.
His confidence about his own personal security. But he cares for everybody.
right.
So he'd follow us sometimes because if we say this, the movement is the kind of things we do.
Right.
He'd follow, you know. But we adjusted. We adjusted. I'm not saying it's a nightmare. It's you adjust as long as you prepare.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Then it's you prepare
Suddenly,
for it.
would go to the demonstrators, the picketers.
Right.
I remember they were able to throw something like an egg or something in PICC. He waved,
And stopped.
stopped.
And
That's
then
okay,
you
yeah.
spoke with him, no? Did it also help that he was a military man, and that he was also very much into intelligence work? That's why, to a certain extent, he was confident of what it was he was doing when he met up close or engaged,
Yes,
shaking hands with everyone.
I think I would say that the military background is there, but he's more of a fatalist, I think. Whatever it is, you'll see it in some of our crucial trips, like even if the weather's was not that good. Okay, we go because people were waiting. People were waiting.
At the other end, yes.
So let's go. He even had to, if I remember right, in Kawayan, Isabela, when it was too cloudy, and
Yes.
it was just a little opening that he asked the pilot, General Apari,
Yes.
at the time,
Yes.
to go. General Apari and Colonel Lebuen to go in and land in Kawayan, Isabela. That
Yes.
short airstrip in Isabela,
Yes.
because he had an
Yes.
appointment there.
Yeah, I remember that. We were in the
Backup.
we were in the backup plane,
backup plane.
when that happened.
And his plane is different from your plane. Huh?
Yes, yes, yes.
His plane is so
Right, right.
so just a little opening, and then they went through. So those things. But we are fortunate. We were fortunate. We had good. Very very good pilots. This we inherited from the presidential security group of President Marcos and Mrs. Aquino.
President Cory also.
No, those pilots, they were good.
Locally, so it was challenging already for you. No? What about the foreign trips? That that was a totally different story, right?
Foreign trips were basically you will be taken care of by the host country in terms of security.
Right.
It's a
Government to government.
it's a convention
Yes.
that you take care of the guests.
Yes.
Okay. In foreign trips, it's how you coordinate to the host country, host security, his style of doing things, because he's different. His hectic schedule.
Yes.
The foreign counterparts would go crazy. And then his tendency to deviate from the schedule.
Right.
And addressed pressing events. For example, if you have a Filipino community suddenly waiting for you somewhere else, and then they came from so different,
Places,
from different
states.
different working places in, for example, Saudi Arabia, and then you have them here. I need to meet them. I have to give them respect, meet them, inspire them. So those things they change. So basically our job was in foreign trips was to help him perform his work as president properly, efficiently, And so that's what we coordinate, ask the host country to do
With your counterparts.
with the counterparts. But it's not hard for him to, it's not hard to, it's not that difficult. It's just that they should know what,
And the
what
penchant
will
to,
happen.
or the penchant to divert.
Changes, the changes.
Changes.
We prepare for all the changes. Prepare for all the changes.
Oh, oh.
That's in terms of security. But everything he did, he was doing. There was always a purpose for the country
Yes.
at the time.
Yes, yes.
At the time.
Some of the, can you recall some of the challenging assignments? Because I remember, for example, was that Congressman Halushos? And, you know, some of the special assignments that FVR would give the PSG. I remember was it Congressman Halushos went into hiding, but eventually, I know it was the PSG that that found him. Were there, you know?
It was basically a output of our intelligence service,
Right.
and our guys in PSG. If I remember right, it was General Esperon who
Right.
was our deputy commander at the time, who worked on that.
Right.
It was basically there's no such thing as untouchable or cannot be reached by the law. So we can. So it was work of our police, the intelligence community, intelligence service, and jointly with presidential security at that time.
That was very FBR also, no? You can't get away, you know.
So no big no big guns. Meaning we're all under the law. We're all subject to the law, law of the land. And then
Were there others similar?
Most one crucial intelligence thing. So we handled the Pope.
There you are. I was going to ask that. Yes.
The Pope's visit.
95.
The threat to the Pope.
Yes.
We were able to get hold of the suspects, the bombers,
Right.
early on, 2 weeks before, or 2 weeks before. And we had to keep it under wrap because the Pope was coming. We informed only the chief of security of the Pope at the time, Father Tucci. And so we agreed that we've taken the Pope, we continue to be here, but we have addressed. So it was basically the work of our police, the Western Police,
Yes.
Manila Police, which was under General Ibdani, Hermogenes Ibdani. He was the chief of Manila. And our intelligence guys that uncovered that plot against the Pope. And we had to keep it under wrap or until the Pope has left. And that's I think that's the time that we made announcement about 1 week after.
About a week or two after, I remember.
A week
Yes.
after that,
Yes.
we told them that there was a threat like this. And
FBR deployed. I mean, you guys were toe to toe with Vatican security, no? So what? He deployed half of you to provide that security blanket on the Pope.
The presidential security was tasked to do that for the Pope.
Yes.
But basically, the supporting elements, we employed the entire armed forces
Yes.
and
And the
Philippine
police.
National Police and other uniformed services around. in the country. We had the support of the Coast Guard, of course.
What was FBR's instruction to the close-in?
Well, he doesn't actually give special instructions. He trusted us that he trusts you. You have the opinion. He trusts you that you do your job,
Okay.
and you do it the way you want. He wants you to do it well. Give your best, like that. Always like that.
Nothing better happened to
And
the leader of the Catholic world. Let's get to the other security nightmare, and you mentioned it. Well, the other security challenge of his term, but and you mentioned it already. Was the APEC, APEC summit. That's not one, not two, 20, right?
there were 18 leaders
18, right,
at the
right,
time
right,
that were members of APEC at the time,
yeah.
96.
Right.
And in preparation for that, President Ramos at the time was keen on selling the country to other countries, telling other people that we are back, that we were back in doing business,
Right.
like that. And so, as I said earlier, there were he invited lots of heads of state and heads of government to come over and do state visits, official visits, personal visits, like that.
So hindi lang ito, no? This is not just APEC, but
So,
diba? So many.
our preparation for provincial engagement, when we were doing that on the weekends, we had international visitors,
As well,
leaders
right.
coming in.
Yes.
And they come overlapping. It's not just one for this month, one for another month. It's not like that. Sometimes we had four leaders in country securing them and taking care of them at that time.
While the principal responsibility was left with their security
Yes,
people, but at the same time, it was a reciprocal.
Yes,
as you mentioned, it was a reciprocal coordination with those agencies.
it's our assurance that they are taken care of when they are here.
So additional deployments. So you had to do I suppose
multiple training,
right,
multiple
right.
training, tasking, multiple tasking, equipping.
Yeah.
That was the most important thing, equipment.
Yes, yes. Again,
So
typical FBR, no?
we had to build up our fleet of presidential motorcade, our motorcycles. We had to do that on a smaller scale.
Yes. So it was a very busy schedule, but I guess FBR also needed some private time for himself. No? What was private time like?
I think it's a 4-hour sleep he used to have.
Yeah.
That's the only private time.
Okay.
4 hours sleep, like 12 to 4 or
In the morning.
1 in the evening to 5 o'clock in the morning. At 5 o'clock he'd start. He had all our dailies, newspapers. So looking at what's happening around us. So that's his private time. You see, he the short time that he was president, I think he made optimized the use of all those times as president.
Okay.
Full use of every time as president. Maximize the time.
Up to when was your tour?
You let me go in 97.
97.
Yeah,
Okay.
I went back to the army. I was army already at that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Went back to the army as a commander in the army. Of a battalion in the
Yes.
army.
Yes. Yes. There was some controversy when you left the PSG. Was there
I may have not heard of that.
with your superior? No.
I had a squabble with the late presidential the commander, General Kalimlim. The late Kalimlim. We didn't agree most of the time in what he was doing.
Most of the time. Oh, okay.
Most of the time.
Okay.
But there were things. So,
That was part of the job.
so, but I was really due to leave Malacanang
Okay.
because I was already late in the
Rotation.
I needed to go back to the field at the time. But the argument, the differences with General Kalimlim was basically more of differences in how we do things in
Operational.
APSG.
All right.
Nothing personal about that.
All right. All right. But your tour with FVR actually may have given you your career a leg up.
Of course, I learned a lot
Okay.
from the very start. Learned that many of the things I tried to do when I was commander already.
Was an offshoot, of what you picked up. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I guess so, no? Because your career actually, it was a good another 15 or so years, after FVR. Let me now ask you some questions about, well, as a professional soldier, and President Ramos, FVR was very particular about, and you've been saying it on several occasions already, training, equipment. Your thoughts on his plans for AFP reform and modernization?
He gave this modernization a priority, transforming the armed forces. In fact, we had the best procurement that happened in his time.
Okay.
So when I went back to the field, we had new Simba vehicles.
Okay.
They were the helicopters. These MG, the small attack helicopters,
Yes.
MG helicopters. The Simba vehicles were new. Now they were all ragtags after 20 years or so.
Yeah.
1998, 2018. So
They were newly acquired.
at the time.
They were acquired
So they
at that
were
time.
new.
Okay.
Housing, we moved to our housing in Port Bonifacio, condominium housing in the Army Officers Village in Bonifacio. There were those that were built in provinces. I think many were built by RSPS housing apartment types that were funded by RSPS.
Okay.
So basically, it's to improve the quality of life of the soldier at the time.
Okay.
I think, if I remember right, we had several increases in standardization in the pay and allowances of the police and the soldiers at the time. 5-year or 6-year,
Yes.
5-year
Increments, yeah.
incremental increases. I'm not sure about other government agencies, if they had, the teachers had that. I'm not sure about that, but for the armed forces we had that salary standardization. he was well committed to seeing to it that the armed forces would be to a certain par, at a certain par with the other armed forces in the world, even small armed forces,
And that's what I was going to ask next, actually, was bringing the institution, the organization into the 21st century. I remember it was not just about equipment and training, but he also, well, intelligence, and technology.
Well, in his time, we had a year ahead about cooperation in addressing terrorism.
Yes, yes.
I remember right. If I remember right, we first hosted this anti-terrorist
Right.
uh,
Conference.
conference in Baguio City at the time of Secretary Alunan, and that World Trade Center thing was just in the planning stage at the time.
Right.
The another thing you mentioned,
Technology.
technology. We were into IT,
Right.
trying to keep up at the time, and best example of that was transforming your in Malacanang, the system in Malacanang,
Right.
to a computerized, digitized system. I'm not sure if there was a follow-up about that, but we started that on those times.
Right. From manual to digitized.
We started the build-up of communication system, and if I remember right, the leveling of the playing fields in the entire country to communications company, big communications company.
Yeah,
that,
he liberalized the
So
telecommunications.
that we can improve our communication system can cope up
Yes.
with the advancement in other field like that.
At about the same time, we lost the bases. No? And a few years into FVR's presidency, we started noticing the incursions in the South China Sea. And your recall of and how FVR,
when we lost the bases, we lost a substantial part of our equipment
Air.
package.
Right.
Many things we relied so much on the Americans were paying us at the time using the bases. In fact, there was aside from the package like the equipment package, training were also affected, substantially reduced. But it's not. There's a good thing about that because we try to look into something else different. We just not only relying from
the U.S.
the United States. The Simba vehicles that came in were British, UK made, and they were done in Subic. They were made in Subic. They were assembled in Subic. The equipment. So that aside from the military capability that we wanted to be available for our armed forces, the business side of having them assembled, manufactured locally, bring in workers, Filipino workers, jobs for our people here, sell in neighboring countries.
Yes.
Basically, it's not only military use, they can be used for police work, which is a requirement by our neighboring countries.
So he took advantage, instead of looking at it as a negative.
Yeah,
He,
it's
FBR looked
self-reliance.
at it, no?
We have to. We started looking at the Korean equipment,
Yes.
Korean hardwares that we can easily borrow. His relationship with the Koreans has been there for a long, long time because the Koreans respected the work of our Filipino veterans who fought in the Korean War. So he would know that we could get equipment from Korea.
There was a preferential relationship. Yeah.
So it's filling the blank. The money that was the projection was that the bases that were converted into commercial private use money could be utilized for the to sustain this modernization program.
Yeah.
But it ended in 1998. The use of that money is guided by certain law.
Yes.
The distribution of that money.
Yeah.
There's a law, BCDA law,
BCDA,
whatever
yeah.
law.
Conversion
Law.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
this money would go here, this money would go here, this money would go here. So I don't know how much was for the armed forces. I'm not sure.
Right. But at least during his term, that was when it all started.
We started that, and that should be sustained.
Yeah, and with the purpose of modernizing the AFP. One other factor during the Ramos presidency was shortly before he came in, was a series of coup attempts against the Aquino administration. Thankfully, looking back, this did not have to happen during his presidency. Soldiers did not have to fight their comrades in arms, and did not have to kill each other. How did that sit with you, as a professional soldier?
It was one of the most significant thing he did. As I said, reach out. In fact, immediately after he won the election, he reached out to. Even before his proclamation, he reached out to the Ambassador Cuanco, I think, Senator Mitra.
His
losing candidates.
Yes.
Mrs. Marcos, Senator Salonga.
Yeah.
He was the first to reach out to them after that. And so these things were done also in the armed forces. I can proudly say that we never had a red alert in our time during the. Not even when the Pope was, there was a threat that the Pope, we didn't declare red alert at that, because we were trying to keep everything under wrap, so there was no red alert. But the situation was a little bit sensitive at the time. But for destabilization threats like that, we never had a problem in his time because. As I said, he reached out to everybody. Let's have an armed forces that is professional. Let you be professional.
2 out of 3 actually, CPP, NPA, NDF, the MNLF, and then RAM, SFP, YOU. There were agreements with 2.
Well,
but
the third one
kind of failed with
his main guy there was the former governor of Tarlac, Apeng Yap. Unfortunately, we didn't. We were not able to do that at the time. But APEC was doing everything at the time to reach out. Maybe some our new president will be able to do that. I hope he be able to do that. Mend the bridges, mend the fence.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember
Mend the,
Colonel, now Senator, or Onasan would describe himself as a reformed and a reformed citizen, after the agreement, between GRP and the RAM, that in particular, because RAM was an organization within the military that, and unfortunately, he had to trade bullets with them, before. How did that, initiative of FVR to bring them back to the fold sit with the soldiers, the AFP?
I think it's well accepted. It's the right thing to do. Reach out. The soldiers should be isolated from politics, basically politics. We should not be taking sides in politics. Let politics be let our people decide who their leaders would be. Let the soldiers be unbiased, fair, as we are normally deputized by the Commission on Election during elections, where in fact we should not be included in the deputation of the COMELEC. So that's the best thing to do, was really to impart on the soldiers that you should be soldiers. Just serve the cause of the national, protect the national integrity, national sovereignty, be the people's protector, national interest. That's your. It's not petty politics.
Keep away from the politics.
We should not be there. It's not our role.
Right. Okay. Just a few last questions from 30 years after from receiving the Constabulary Award as a graduating cadet of the PMA, and now yourself a retired soldier. What has changed of your first impressions of the man who gave you the Constabulary Award, and today the former president? Is there anything? Has it changed, or has it even been?
Of course, he's 90 years old now, but he's still the same. You look up to him. He's still an inspiration. I don't know if I can reach his age playing golf up to this, because so that's 30 years up there from now.
Right.
So he's still playing. He can play golf. He can relate. He can bring people together. He is respected. He's known. He's respected abroad, internationally.
Right.
So he kept that image. He kept that capacity. He still has that. He still has the aura to. But he's retired. He's retired. He's retired. We don't do imahatir here. I don't think we should be doing imahatir. Forget it. He's retired. His words of wisdom from time to time. It's nice to be reminded of. To listen and be reminded, and understand the purpose. For example, that last Sunday we had Korean
The anniversary.
commemoration.
Yeah, the anniversary.
It's basically to honor our veterans, renew friendship, remind the Koreans that we're part of you.
Yes.
We were part of you. We were there. We helped you here. Remind the Koreans that the young Koreans, the young businessmen, that you are now there because once we were there, help you. These are things that thinking about the country all the time. He thinks about the country all the time. What's good for the country. That we should take. We should look at it as a best example of a good citizen.
Okay. That's probably my last question. What would you remember most? What would you think is FVR's legacy?
It's love of country. It's love of country, I think. Love of his country. He loves his country. Even if he's American trained, he loves his country. He's not an amboy.
Maraming salamat.